there are over 26 million homes in the UK. It's our most valuable possession and the one place where we should feel safe. So what happens when it comes under threat?
And it was a scene of utter devastation.
It was just carnage.
The whole floor was swarming.
When disaster strikes where you live, it can devastate your whole life.
The noise, the wind, it was terrifying.
Unstoppable.
It wasn't just ours, it was our home.
Coming up, a family home becomes a perilous crash site.
Until somebody dies here, nothing's going to get done.
A virulent plant threatens the very foundations of one couple's house.
It's at the point now we just don't know what to do anymore. It's devastating.
And a mom and her 2 young children are told to act as bait to rid their home of an infestation of bugs.
I was putting my children in a position where they had to go to bed and they had to get bitten.
Buying a home in the country is often about a quieter, slower pace of life. But imagine if that tranquil existence was suddenly shattered by a series of car crashes right outside your house. Alison Pinnock knows exactly what that's like.
This is my house that I love, and we've had 4 beautiful children that we've raised here. It's been lovely. The house I wouldn't change for the world. Unfortunately, I would change this road. If there was anything I could do to stop the traffic going so fast on this road, I would do it. Got to sort out what we're going to have for tea tonight, haven't we?
When Alison and her husband, Brian, moved into their house 23 years ago, the road in front was fairly quiet, surrounded by countryside.
This house was great for raising our family. It's got a lane beside it that led up to a farmhouse. They could ride their bikes, scooters, and have lots of fun out there, surrounded by fields and countryside. We've been very happy living here, and I could see it as my forever home because I felt it was safe.
But in 2012, all that changed.
We had come home from a night out close to Christmas, and we'd been inside our house for 5 minutes, and we heard a crash, looked out of the window and saw a car on its side in the hedge.
Oh my God.
It was only a few hours later that we had another one. So we ended up with 2 cars faced opposite our front window on their sides.
At first, Alison put the crashes down to an unlucky one-off, but more followed.
Through that winter, I believe we had 8 or 9 accidents, and I felt very upset and emotional. I'm scared that somebody was going to get hurt badly. And I didn't come over.
Alison started logging the accidents and got in touch with her local council. She told them she thought the crashes were being caused by a build-up of excess water on the road and that a new building development nearby had made the problem worse.
The water running down the road was like a river. It just went into the dip by our property, and cars were going so fast through it that it was even coming over the fence.
The council, the developer and the contractor didn't think the building work was causing the excess water, though the council did make changes to the drainage system on the road. It improved the amount of surface water on the road, but it didn't stop the accidents. Over the next 2.5 years, Alison says she recorded 20 more crashes right outside her home. In May 2015, she witnessed the worst to date.
I was outside hanging the washing up, and I just heard a crash. I ran outside and I saw a young man laying on the pavement. He had no socks or shoes left on, no crash helmet, and I ran in to call for the emergency services. It was just carnage. It was pretty horrific, really. His head was bleeding. Not good, not good.
Fortunately, his injuries weren't life-threatening, but the experience hit Alison hard.
When I think about what's happened, I can't help but get upset, so. It's just not pleasant to see people getting hurt. I don't want that. And I don't want my family getting hurt, and that means more to me than anything.
Desperate to keep her family safe, Alison continued to fight for improvements to the road.
The only thing I can see that will help is speed cameras, and they don't seem to want to give us them.
When it comes to buying a home, the priorities for most of us are price, size, and of course location. But how many of us bother to check if there are any hidden hazards that could threaten not only the value, but the very structure of the house? Liz and Adrian Atkinson moved into their 4-bedroom home as newlyweds 18 years ago.
We noticed this house for sale. We fell in love with it. And it was just perfect really for what we were looking for with newly marrieds and expecting our first baby.
If there was ever a place for us, this was this house and the garden with it.
But in 2011, the fenced-off wasteland that surrounded their garden began to cause them concern.
We were becoming aware there was something growing on it.
The wasteland was bigger than half a football pitch and was dense with vegetation, and it was creeping closer and closer towards the Atkinsons' home.
It was actually growing up probably a couple of feet higher than that railing.
Eventually, the vegetation began to spread into their garden.
But when we first noticed it growing in our garden, it was a tiny shoot just coming up through the grass. But within 2 or 3 months, those tiny shoots had grown up into quite a large mature plant. We had no idea what it was. Adrian happened to see a programme on television and it talked about this plant called Japanese knotweed. I came out and I had a look and I thought, yeah, I think you're right. I think we do have Japanese knotweed.
Liz and Adrian's garden had been invaded by Japanese knotweed, one of the most destructive plants in the world. This plant can grow up to 4 inches a day, and its invasive root system can rip apart drains, roads, and even break up concrete foundations of buildings. Knotweed expert Mark Johnson has been helping the Atkinsons with the problem.
Oh, Liz, how are you? Thank you very much. Right. It's just horrendous. And it grows closer. It's that creep that means you've got it in your garden now. Unless we can get to the root, get enough herbicide in them that we can eradicate. We could be talking up to 10 years treatment.
Liz and Adrian have been hacking back the knotweed that has invaded their garden. But what has been much harder for them to deal with are the destructive roots that grow underground.
It's a perennial, and then as you get towards winter and all the strength in the plant is going back down into the roots, you get what we can see here, which is like bamboo-like cane, hollow canes, but all the strength in the plant has gone back down in for the winter. I'm actually quite horrified at the extent of the problem. It's probably one of the worst we've seen in Northern Ireland.
The only way to completely eradicate the Japanese knotweed is to treat it at its source, which is on the wasteland next to their garden.
I'd love to be able to give you a price for how much it would cost to treat that, but we can't do that until we've done a full site survey. So we really need to get permission to get access to that land and then force whoever it is that owns the land to get on and treat it.
Yeah.
But accessing the land is proving a huge problem for Liz and Adrian.
Everyone says, oh, we don't know who owns the land.
Unless they find the owner, the knotweed will continue to threaten their home. You would normally expect to see seagulls at the seaside, but in the last 15 years, their numbers have quadrupled in urban city centres. Even though it's over 100 miles from the sea, the jewellery quarter of Birmingham is being taken over by gulls.
It's Joe and Sparky, morning.
Morning. Now, we have got a problem here in the city which really needs to be dealt with. The seagulls.
Hundreds of these things have flocked to the jewellery quarter.
If it was my neighbour squawking at the top of their voice at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd be on to the landlords getting them evicted. What do we need to do to get rid of them?
2 years ago, Tabitha Brown and Tim Whitehouse moved into their trendy warehouse apartment in the up-and-coming jewellery quarter of Birmingham.
I absolutely love the jewellery quarter. It's great. And as well, flats like this, there are so many abandoned buildings that just end up being demolished because they've been left. It's great that they're converting and regenerating all the area around here. There's only one thing I hate about living here.
Flocks of seagulls everywhere, making a ridiculous amount of noise. They're really loud.
They swoop at your windows, they swoop at you on the street. They're out there scavenging, tearing open everybody's rubbish bags. They're absolutely disgusting creatures.
The noise is intense at times, very loud, screechy.
The noise of these creatures has to be heard to be believed. They actually screech, I mean, like a scream.
They're so loud that they actually wake you up, and I normally sleep through anything.
Another resident who struggled with the seagulls was Stu Pittaway, who had moved with his wife Emma to the jewellery quarter in 2010.
One of the nights I sort of recorded it on my phone, and I hate listening back to it because it just reminds me about how horrible it actually was.
This is 10 to 5 in the morning in Birmingham.
You wouldn't put up with it if it was a noisy neighbour playing their music. I don't understand why you'd have to put up with it if it's just a constant screeching of an animal. The problem just seemed to get worse and worse. We thought that something might have been done about it. The last summer that's just gone, we noticed that seagulls were actually dive bombing people as they were walking down the street.
Stu regularly asked the council for help.
There were loads of suggestions and ideas put in place, things like egg replacement treatment, things like that. Lots of different things that we'd heard before where lasers were there to deter them, and even hiring in birds of prey and things like that. But nothing was ever done by the council to our knowledge, and if they did do anything, it didn't work.
After 5 years of putting up with the gulls, Stu and his wife Emma decided reluctantly to move out.
A lot of sentimental value to that flat. We got engaged there, we got married. It was our first flat together. We tried to put up with it as much as we possibly could, but it just got to the point where it was way too much. We just weren't getting enough sleep at all. We were just getting really cranky, and we couldn't take it anymore. It was just too many sleepless nights. I put up with a lot of things in the past, but I never thought it would come to the point where a seagull would keep me out of my dream house.
Stu and his wife may have been forced out of their home, but Tim and Tabitha are desperate to find a way to stay in theirs. In Belfast, Liz and Adrian Atkinson's home is under threat from Japanese knotweed, an invasive and deadly plant with roots which grow all year round and can break up building foundations.
The worrying thing about it is, at this time of the year, people think it's starting to die. It's not dying, it's only hibernating.
The problem the couple face is that to eradicate the knotweed fully, they need to have the main roots of the plant treated, and they are on land which does not belong to them. All the Atkinsons can do at the moment is pay for experts to spray the knotweed on their land.
It's the root is the biggest problem, and because the root can be up to 3 metres underground, we want to give as much chance for the pesticide to get as far down under the ground as possible. We just need to find who owns that piece of land and get them to accept the responsibility and do the right thing.
Despite the pesticide, the damaging roots are still inching closer and closer to their house. Liz and Adrian desperately need to know who owns that land.
That's not good enough. I'm just wanting to know who might own the land. You know, everyone says, oh, we don't know who owns the land, we can't do anything about it. If there was a nuclear spill in that ground, does that mean nothing would happen? That it would just be left because we don't know who owns the ground?
Desperate to get the problem sorted, Liz has also tried the Environment Agency to see if they can help.
This reply came in more or less telling us that there was nothing they could do about it. They also said that they had enclosed some literature on the ecology of Japanese knotweed. And we just thought, this is a real slap in the face. This is actually really quite patronising, that we wrote a letter pleading for help and we get a book confirming what we know, that we have a real problem on our hands.
To make matters worse, it appears that if the knotweed spread from Liz and Adrian's land onto their neighbour's land, Liz and Adrian could be held responsible.
Legal onus was going to be put on us if this knotweed spread any further. If it spread, for example, from our garden into our next door neighbour's garden, does that mean then it was our problem and we were going to be liable for treatment and growth in our neighbour's garden?
And the Atkinsons have to deal with another danger from the plant, which their 18-year-old daughter has experienced firsthand.
I heard a knock on the door and it was a neighbour telling me that there was a fire in the back.
During the winter months, knotweed turns into a bamboo-like plant which can easily catch light.
Flames were quite high. They kind of came to about the top of that fence there, and they started spreading closer to the house. There's 2 gas and oil tanks over there. I was worried about what would happen if the fire spread around.
Eventually, the fire was put out, but it didn't stop the knotweed.
It grew up stronger and thicker within 2 weeks. Knotweed grows on the size of volcanoes. Even a fire won't kill it.
Although it's not the responsibility of bodies like the Environment Agency to deal with knotweed on private land, Liz can't help but feel let down.
What has to happen for somebody to help us, for somebody to actually come and get rid of this stuff? It's just so unfair and so distressing.
In just 2.5 years, Alison Pinnock from Wickford in Essex recorded 20 traffic accidents right outside her home.
We have talked about selling the house, but we never wanted to move. We've always wanted this to be our forever home.
The constant worry of more crashes has taken its toll on Alison's health.
I have been to the doctors twice this year. He can see the effect it's had on me. He's prescribed me some cream for my hands because eczema appeared on them, and he told me that was due to stress. And I've also got sleeping pills, which I don't want to take because I've got 4 children here and I need to wake up in the morning. I don't want to be, a zombie.
The stress on Alison has had an impact on the whole family. Today she's meeting up with longtime friend Pat to talk things through.
I can't relax in my own home now.
No.
I can't. I'm on edge. I hear a lorry trundle past and it makes me jump. Both Brian and I have discussed about getting the house valued, about moving.
Alison, I did speak to Brian actually. He said to me that he's got to the stage where he would go anywhere. He just wants to, because it was affecting your marriage, and he was worried about the children. Don't get upset.
Sorry. It has put a strain on us.
I mean, he wasn't saying he's going to walk out or anything, but it's put a strain on the whole family, the children.
Because they can see that I'm unhappy, and they don't want to see their mum on the phone crying and emotional.
Despite the council making improvements to the road's drainage, since the spring of 2013, Alison recorded a further 12 accidents. She believes that's because the drainage wasn't the only factor causing the crashes outside her home.
We have got together over the years through contacting council and highways to try and get something done here with the speed.
Finally, in November 2015, the 60-mile-per-hour limit was reduced to 40. It should have been good news for Alison, but it hasn't given her the peace of mind she was hoping for.
So this is the approach road to my property, and as you come down this hill, you will see road signs that say 40 right in the dip. But unfortunately, people don't take notice of that. The only thing I can see that will help is speed cameras, and they don't seem to want to give us them. They think that this road is at the right speed, and until we get a DEF, they're not going to do anything.
Essex County Council say they have made concerted efforts to improve the safety of Runwell Road. It is inspected every 3 months for surface defects, and they urge motorists to observe speed limits and drive safely according to the road conditions. In December 2015, a speed monitoring device was installed to check the average speed of cars travelling along the road. Today, Essex Police are back to tell Alison the results of the speed checks.
Thank you so much for coming to see me. I really appreciate it.
So we carried out the survey, the speed survey, in December. As you can see there, it monitored 65,119 vehicles over that 4-day period. It's quite a lot of vehicles. The average speed over the westbound over those 4 days was 39.3.
Right.
Is that surprising, or?
Well, it's very surprising to me because it just definitely doesn't feel like it. Maybe because of all the accidents that we've had right outside the front door, it still feels like they're driving just as fast, especially through rush hours, especially from 6 o'clock in the morning. So
you've got a lot of vehicles. That's a lot of vehicles using that road, and sometimes the volume, and obviously your property is very, very close to the road. So combined with those two things, it will give you sometimes another worry or concern about, speed.
Alison still has concerns that some drivers are travelling too fast on the road.
This is the average speed, and there will definitely be vehicles who are travelling, above that. Yeah. What we need to be reassured is that those that are travelling way above the speed limit, those sort of drivers at the moment we are focusing on, and obviously up there now we've got an area where we could quite easily do a speed check with the new little link road round there. So, from time to time, I'm more than happy to come along here and do some speed checks.
thank you ever so much for coming to see me. Anyway, bye-bye.
Naturally, she's disappointed. That is the sort of response we get from a lot of people once we've done these surveys. As I said to Mrs. Pennock, we won't leave her. We'll always continue to engage with her, and we will always try and do a speed check down here with officers from time to time, just to reinforce the 40-mile-an-hour message.
The reduction in speed limit has slowed vehicles down, but for Alison, it may not be enough to make her feel safe again.
I think the only answer is going to be to move, but it's hard to move from a home that you've had all your children in and that you love.
Across the UK, nearly 500,000 homes a year are affected by animal infestations. These critter invasions can cause havoc in our homes, and getting rid of them costs nearly £2 billion a year. Lucy Parry knows only too well the impact they can have. Part-time care worker Lucy and her 2 sons Tyler and Sean had just moved into a new flat in South London near her family.
I've got a big family down here and we are very close. It was really, really exciting. There is nothing like moving into a new place. And I have put a lot of effort into making this nice for the boys.
But only 2 weeks after moving in, Lucy noticed her youngest son Sean had developed a worrying rash.
I put him in a bath and he just had a few little spots. They were just tiny little red rose spots. They did get progressively worse every day.
Lucy was concerned. She called her sister, Katie.
Got a phone call from Lucy and basically saying that, you know, the kids had come out in red lumps all over the place. I came around to see the kids here and literally all over their body, especially Tyler, the oldest. He just had blobs all over his arms. He had it on his neck, all around his face. I'd never seen anything like it. They were literally big red blobs all over their body. It was everywhere.
Is it something they're allergic to in the house? Are they allergic to someone's pets? Have we used different soap? I didn't have a clue.
Lucy was going to call the doctors in the morning if the spots hadn't gone, but she didn't have to wait that long to discover what was causing the rash.
That night that they were in bed together, I noticed something on my eldest boy's face, and it was a bug. I saw it on his face, and I obviously batted it off. And then everything made sense to me. They're bed bugs. And I was like, grabbed the kids out of bed, chucked their dressing gowns on them, and I left.
After a bug-free night at her dad's house, Lucy was straight on the phone to the council, who immediately sent round pest control.
Right, let's have a little look around.
He confirmed the flat had an infestation of bedbugs.
Year on year, bedbug populations have increased, whereas 10 years ago it'd be very rare to come across them. Now it's everyday occurrence for a lot of us.
Bedbugs had been festering in the bedroom of Lucy's flat undetected for months, and drawn to the warmth of their body heat, they had literally been feeding on her and her sons. Now Lucy knew what was infecting her house. She began to see signs of it everywhere.
Obviously you can see on the curtain, they're drop-ins. These are the marks that you would find on your sheets, on your pillows, on any soft furnishing.
With each female bedbug being able to lay up to 300 eggs in a lifetime, there could be thousands of bedbugs in the flat.
It makes me just feel really sick, especially because that's where I sleep as well.
Lucy's home would need to be fumigated.
We usually spray a residual insecticide that will kill any insects on contact as they emerge. Once is never usually enough, you always have to come back just to make sure.
Lucy was told it could take as many as 4 or 5 treatments to rid her home of the infestation, and the ideal conditions to treat it meant the family needed to remain in the flat.
I think the worst thing was being told that we had to remain here and act as bait. And it was because pest control said that for the bugs to come out and come in contact with the treatment, they would need someone there. I was putting my children in a position where they had to go to bed and they had to get bitten so that we could get rid of the problem. And it made me feel awful as a parent.
Lucy could only put her children through so much. In Northern Ireland, Adrian and Liz Atkinson have been fighting an invasion of Japanese knotweed for the last 3 years. This dangerous plant that can render your home worthless if it eats into your foundations has grown into their garden from neighbouring wasteland, and its roots are now just a couple of metres from their home. But to completely eradicate the knotweed, the Atkinsons need to find out who owns the wasteland.
It's at the point now we just don't know what to do anymore. It's devastating.
The fight to get rid of the knotweed has now taken over their lives.
I work full-time in a busy, responsible job. I'm coming home in the evening and having to start emailing, writing letters, and here we are 3 years on, no further on really. And it just is almost taken over at the minute, to the extent our friends are calling us Mr. and Mrs. Knotweed.
To make matters worse, Adrian's health has been deteriorating and the couple may need to move out of their home.
Over the years, Adrian developed health problems to the extent where he now really is quite disabled.
It just takes so much. I can't even describe how much this takes out of me getting up and down the stairs.
We're in a situation here that we may need to sell the house. We might need to move to a house that's more suitable.
The Atkinsons have decided to get their house valued, and today local estate agent Colin Barkley has come round.
Thank you.
Well, it's automatic lights.
Oh, brilliant. And the non-slip floor and the cladding,
disabled,
which is great from a maintenance point of view. Yeah, lovely. Nice units. Okay.
Colin may be impressed by Liz and Adrian's home improvements, but he's well aware of the knotweed.
I think there is a big problem here for the owners, because what is now affecting them big style is something that is outside their boundary. It is not of their making, and yet it's going to knock a substantial amount off the investment that they made, or their future, if you like. So that's a pretty bitter pill to swallow. I really feel for you. I've had a good look around. House, lovely house, extension, good site, all of that. A lot of positives. If it were not for what is the other side of that fence.
The knotweed.
Yeah, the knotweed is causing a huge problem. It's the biggest of its type that I have seen, and the vast majority of people coming to look, once they're aware of that, will run a mile. If someone was coming along to buy now, I think it's only going to be an investor taking a long-term view, and they're going to do that only if they're getting it at rock bottom prices. And so they're going to want a discount of probably something like 40%.
Seriously?
Yeah. Because
40%?
On the basis, I'm working on the basis that we're told that it could cost tens of thousands to fix the problem. 99% of buyers are going to disappear very quickly.
It's not even our problem.
I didn't think it would be as much as that.
Yeah.
I'm going to start getting emotional here.
It's not just about saying it's going to cost 30,000 to take 30,000 off. Yeah. It's not just that. Yeah. It's much worse, because people are going to. The normal buyer in the current market has other options and other choices. Yeah. So why take on a property that's going to have these problems when they can take one on with no problems?
The Atkinsons' house was worth £150,000.
It's really quite shocking. I don't think we really expected it would have been just quite so much. I'm going to start getting tearful here. I mean, we knew it was going to affect the price, the value of the property, we knew that. I don't think we had quite expected him to say the house was worth 40% less. It's just so unfair, because the problem isn't ours. The problem belongs to somebody else.
Unable to find out who is responsible for the wasteland and unlikely to find a buyer for their home, Japanese knotweed has the Atkinsons well and truly trapped.
We do have a major concern about the future as we both get older, and perhaps Adrian's condition maybe worsens. What are we going to be left with? I mean, it really is quite scary. I'm beginning to feel angry, to be honest. I think we now need to regroup and get on with the fight, really. We're not going to give up.
Urban gulls in a jewellery quarter of inner city Birmingham have been making residents Tim and Tabitha's lives a misery.
The noise of these creatures has to be heard to be believed. They actually screech, I mean, like a scream.
They're so loud that they actually wake you up.
The noisy gulls have already driven one couple out of their flat.
Put up with a lot of things in the past, but I never thought it would come to the point where a seagull would keep me out of my dream house.
It's having a huge impact on Tim and Tabitha's lives, but they are desperate to stay in their home. Over the last few months, the couple have tried a number of things to get rid of the gulls.
And this was one of the things that was seemed quite a popular thing to buy. It was very expensive. Thought it was essentially a beach ball with reflecting eyes, but I thought I'd give it a try because I was so desperate to try something. And let it hang there, and the wind blows it around. And the seagulls in the distance, the idea for them is to get scared of it and go and nest somewhere else.
But nothing so far has worked. In another attempt to get rid of the gulls, Tim and Tabitha have called in Europe's leading expert of city-living seagulls, Peter Rock, for advice.
Looking out the window, I can see flat roofs, parapets, and all sorts of places where gulls can anchor their nests. Those buildings there are nothing more than islands with very steep cliffs. And that's ideal because what they're here for is the safety of these nesting areas where they can actually get on with the point of breeding and do what they need to do. They're not just in Birmingham, by the way. From the register I've been building, they're in 484 colonies. Birmingham just happens to be one of them. Okay, so you're not alone.
Just horrific noise, can't sleep properly. So is there anything we can do?
That's the number one complaint. You've hit the number one complaint. Lots of people think it's all about aggression. Actually, no, it's not. It's all about the noise. Yeah. I think probably followed by the flying white stuff. I know of some places where breeding density is so high that people walk around with umbrellas.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's...
I can sympathise with that. I can sympathise.
It may well be, before long, we will see more birds breeding in town than we see breeding in the wild. We're dealing with birds which are at the high end of avian intelligence. They're not at the low end, like pigeons, but at the high end. And so whatever we put in front of them, they can usually overcome quite easily.
But what Tim and Tabitha wanted to know was if they would ever be rid of them.
Lots of people have tried to do something about them and failed so far. I really feel sorry to have to say this. Get some earplugs, and if the earplugs don't work, it's over to you, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Tim and Tabitha have to put up with the screeching seagulls or move out.
Now we found out that they return to the same place every year to breed. We know we're going to have the same fellows along.
The council say they ran a 3-year pilot to see whether egg replacement would control the city's gull population. This pilot was found to be effective, but with only 18 complaints, the demand just wasn't there for a paid-for service. They advised residents to make their own arrangements with specialist contractors.
I really don't know what to do now. I'd like to stay here, but if this noise continues throughout the summer, it will just be impossible.
We're probably going to have to look at leaving our home because of them. It's turned it into a bit of a horror home.
In London, the home of single mother of 2 Lucy is infested with bedbugs, leaving her family covered in spots and rashes from insect bites. Having called pest control, treatments are underway to kill the bugs, but Lucy has been told that for the treatments to work, her family's body heat is needed to draw the bugs out, so they must stay in the house.
I think the worst thing was being told that we had to act as bait so that we could get rid of the problem. I was going to bed every night and I was giving the boys a kiss goodnight and sort of saying to them, I'm sorry. I did feel generally awful in myself.
They kept biting me everywhere and I had loads of spots on me.
Every part of the house and everything in it was affected by the bugs.
I found quite a few that were crawling behind here. The few I saw, there could have been hundreds crawling all round. It was sickening knowing that they could have been anywhere.
With such a widespread infestation, Lucy had no choice but to accompany the pest control treatments with a deep clean of everything she owned.
All the clothes needed to be packed up. They all had to be boil washed. They was all to be in sealed bags until the infestation had completely finished. Obviously, having 2 children, there was a lot of clothes. Days off of work I spent in the laundrette, dry cleaners, all the duvets, all the sheets. It was terrible.
3 weeks after the house had been treated, Lucy thought her problem was solved, but her nightmare was far from over.
I was sitting here one night watching TV and I suddenly felt something on me. Looked down and it was a bedbug crawling across my hand. And then obviously I just grabbed the boys and got straight out. Just wanted to get out the house.
Lucy didn't want to put her sons through any more. She couldn't live in the house any longer, and so the family moved in with her dad.
Oh dear. Lucy was getting quite stressed. If they say they've all gone, when does she go back? If she goes back and they are still there, she's back to square one.
It's just in the corner, the crease, isn't it?
Lucy's unoccupied house meant there was no body heat to bring out the bugs, and so the pest control treatments would take longer to work. Lucy and her family ended up living with her dad for 3 months.
Please. Overall, I had probably 6 or 7 treatments. It was after every treatment that you hoped that they wouldn't come back.
In May 2015, Lucy finally moved back home permanently and is waiting to get a final reassurance from pest control that all the bedbugs are gone.
Let's have a little look along the bed and the mattress. But no, don't seem to be any signs here whatsoever.
I do disinfect these all the time as well.
Yeah, it doesn't do any harm, definitely not. And when you do that, you'll spot anything before it gets out of hand as well. So, looking good so far.
And the only other place is over here. Literally any little mark.
Yeah.
I'm not checking.
Yeah. No signs whatsoever.
No, there's nothing, is there?
No, it's looking good.
It's the news Lucy was hoping for. Her family home is finally bedbug free and they can live there happily once more.
We've sort of got our house back, we've got our bedroom back. The boys come in here to play. I know that they're safe playing in here, I know they're happy. It's so much better now.